Hey, Garret from Louisiana. Many folks have expressed shock and surprise by what's happening today, expressed shock that energy prices are skyrocketing like they are, that they're having such an impact that just transcends the American economy. People are expressing shock that they've suddenly learned that we're so dependent upon Russian energy and energy from other countries that don't share America's values. It is absolutely incredible to me that people are expressing that type of reaction. Leaders here, Bruce Westerman from the Natural Resources Committee, August Pfluger, Catherine McMorris-Rogers, and others. We have been predicting, we have been saying, we have been calling for this exact scenario. Not for weeks or months, but for years. We've offered amendments to say that if gas prices exceed $4 a gallon, then this can't happen. Then you've got to produce domestically. We've said you cannot implement this legislation if it's going to cause a greater increase on dependence on energy from Russia, from China, or other countries. All of this has been predicted, and I'll tell you who's opposed our efforts every single time. It's been Democrats. This isn't political. That's just a fact. They're the ones who have opposed these efforts, not for weeks, not for days, not for months, but for years. We've been offering up these types of amendments, these types of policy solutions. I want to remind you, the last time that Ukraine was invaded was during President Obama's time. You know what else was going on at the same time? Another coincidence was that we had reached peak dependence upon Russian energy. Vladimir Putin knew in 2014 that he had us. He had leverage over us because we were so dependent upon them for energy, and he invaded Crimea. Now, once again, increasing our dependence, nearly tripling our crude oil imports from Russia last year. They knew that they had us again. And so none of this should have been a shock or surprise to anybody. History is going to repeat itself, especially if we keep making the same stupid mistakes that we made and should have learned from years ago. Now, I'll say it again, people expressing shock and surprise. Do you know that in the president's budget request to the Congress, there's an explicit provision in there that says that they won't make investments that result in a reduction of the cost of oil and gas? Let me say that again. In the president's budget request to the Congress, there's a provision in there that says they will not make investments in projects that result in a reduction in the cost of oil and gas. Congressman Scalise and I have been fighting this since we first saw it. Let me translate it another way. We want higher energy prices. They've clearly succeeded in that objective. Coming out of 2019 and 2020, we were at a point to where we were energy independent. We were energy secure in the United States. This own Biden administration's documents under the EIA, they showed that you are going to have a surge in global energy demand. You've heard the members talk about, if we're going to have a surge in energy demand globally, why not produce it from the place that does it cleanest? I'll give you another shocking fact, shocking because people aren't paying attention to facts or science. Under the previous administration, we reduced emissions on average 2.5% a year. Reduced emissions. How many of you think that under President Biden's administration last year, we reduced them even more? They actually went up 6.3% last year. There's not a strategy for energy out of this administration. It's higher prices, it's energy insecurity, and it's higher emissions. You're not achieving any objective that makes any sense whatsoever. They came out of the gates with an executive order banning additional leasing on public lands and waters in the United States, again, off the coast of Louisiana, where Congressman Scalise and I represent, giving our people pink slips in effect, yet employing more and more people in places like Algeria, in places like, obviously, Russia, in places like Saudi Arabia. Shame on us for repeating these same mistakes of the past. They came out and under the Build Back Better Act. Do you know that they imposed severance taxes on energy? They imposed up to a $10,000 a mile a year fee on pipelines. They increased royalty rates. Who's surprised that this is happening right now? This was entirely part of their plan. And now, as Congressman Scalise said, the highest gasoline prices in American history. The problems that they're causing within American families across our country right now, people calling our office telling us they can't even afford to refill their gas tanks to get to work. This is appalling. It was preventable. We have 38 billion barrels of technically proven reserves in the United States. 38 billion barrels. But instead, we're importing energy from Russia. And you've seen the latest. The administration's now going to talk to the Saudis, going to cut a cruddy deal with Iran, and they're in Venezuela negotiating with them. Going from bad to worse. I'll say it again. We have the reserves here, and this is preventable. No leasing, no exploration and production. That's not an energy policy. That's completely flawed strategies. They're impacting Americans across the board. And unfortunately, while I commend the administration for coming out and putting a ban on Russian oil, we proposed bans on Russian oil dating back 3 years ago, and they have fought us. So now they're going to ban Russian oil without any opportunity, without a plan to backfill. It's like quitting your job without a plan to figure out how you're going to pay your rent, your car note, or get groceries. Doubling down on stupid. We have the ability to produce our own energy security in the United States, and shame on us for continuing to repeat the mistakes of the past.